On the flip side of that, of course, in the mid '80s, you had the WWF cartoon, and all of a sudden you started having action figures, and wrestling became this. It became something else in pop culture. How did that? How did you see that affecting? Like, were there more fans or different fans?
Well, I think the whole business got tipped upside down with Vince McMahon in the first place, where he took wrestling and really put on a different scale, a different level than we'd ever known before, especially wrestlers. You know, we were used to wrestling in little halls and little tiny dingy arenas that had bad lighting and stuff like that. Suddenly you're wrestling at these big 20,000 seat coliseums and stuff. It was a big thing for all of us back then. And Vince was lucky he found the right guy, and the right guy was Hulk Hogan. He had a great look. You know, he was just such a impressive looking guy just to see him walk in a room. You know, he was 6'8", and he had some of his legs taped to his shoulders. He was just such a big guy and such an impressive looking guy, and his promos were, you know, for that time period, were, you know, he was the best in the world at promos, and there was a certain electricity that came from Hulk Hogan that made it. There was wrestling fans. There was always lots of wrestling fans in those days, but it made new fans out of a lot of people that hadn't watched wrestling. People started getting into wrestling. Maybe in some ways for the wrong reason, because it was more about the look in those days. But I don't think any of us would argue that we would have had the success that we had if it wasn't for what Hulk Hogan did, what he brought to wrestling in the first place. But Hulk Hogan, you know, if you look at, say, 1984, is when I started in WWE, he was there. You know, the talent that Vince had for Hulk Hogan, he had Kamala, and he had Bundy, and he had One Man Gang, and he had Killer Khan, and he had so many great big monster wrestlers to wrestle against Hulk. He had them lined up one opponent after another that would sell out everywhere. You know, when I was champion in 1992, I had Shawn Michaels. That was about it. You know, I didn't have, there wasn't a lot of guys for me to work with, and when I first won the title, it was, you know, they had the drug testing, and a lot of the big stars like Ultimate Warrior, guys like that were gone. All the big muscle-bound guys were gone, which was a blessing in disguise. I don't know if anyone realized it at the time. You know, the only guys that were left were the guys that were all clean. And, I can say that through my entire career as champion for Vince McMahon, I was drug-free, just, you know, every match, throughout my whole career. And I think a lot of us kind of started to move in a different direction, and like I was saying a few minutes ago, that's where we ended up going, is where we are now, with a lot of guys that are doing a lot of action. I think the wrestlers today are Punk, and some of these guys are the best that I've ever seen. They're awesome. I know a lot of fans say, I don't watch wrestling anymore. I stopped watching when you got screwed and stuff. And it's like, you should go back and watch. You know, there's some really good wrestlers out there now that are really raising the bar and doing exceptional stuff.
Sure, some of you have questions, right?
Bret, WrestleMania 10, prouder moment, helping propel your brother's career, or winning the title?
No, for sure. Well, they're both significant in their own way. But the Owen match, my brother match, was much more meaningful to me. Yoko, he was a great wrestler, but I think I don't think he wanted to lose the title that day. He wasn't very cheerful, 600-pound blob that day. And, it wasn't his best match. I always wonder, I'm not sure why he fell off the second rope, why he was unconscious. Took it away. Take it away, you get it. But the match I had with my brother Owen, that was a whole different thing. It's so hard to have a great match, period, with another wrestler, but it's really hard to have a great match with somebody when you've never wrestled with before. And I never really had a chance to wrestle Owen ever before, so it was basically our first match is live at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania. It was a huge weight on, especially my brother Owen, who I was champion, so I was kind of at the top of my game. But Owen was a bit player trying to get apart. And I remember Owen and I, about 2 weeks before WrestleMania that year, he threw us in some tag matches. I think it was me and Scott Hall against Owen and Sean, I think. And it was a bunch of towns in Wisconsin, about 4 towns. We had 4 chances to kind of work with each other and figure out what we were going to try to do for our matches. And I think that's why they booked the card the way they did. They wanted for Owen and I to kind of just feel each other out a little bit. Because like I say, it's really hard just to go in there cold, having never wrestled each other, and have a great match. You might have a decent match. But anyway, Owen and I worked out a bunch of spots, and Owen was a really good high flyer and doing a lot of stuff in Japan and stuff in those days. And I remember he was going to pull out all the stops, everything. I remember it was like, what else you got? We filled the whole match with all these unbelievable moves for Owen. Diving, catching him, cartwheels. And I remember, like it was, I think it was the day before we left for WrestleMania, which would have been Thursday morning, and WrestleMania Sunday. I called Owen up and I said, we got the wrong match. And he was really happy. He was like, I thought the match we had was great. And I said, it is, it's a really good match, but it's the wrong match. You're doing all these high-flying things, like, by the end of the match, they're gonna cheer you out of the ring. They're gonna love you. You have such a good style. So that's not the objective here. The objective is to make them hate you, not to love you. They're gonna kill this whole thing first day. Your first chance of being a bad guy, you're gonna get cheered so much that you're gonna be a good guy the week later. So we gotta change the whole match around. So we did. We came up to my dad's house and we went in the dungeon, the real one. Toyed around for about 2 hours, 3 hours, figuring out all the other things we would do to change the match from being Owen the nice guy to turn him into a dirty little rat. Really make people mad at him. And it worked. I remember we did big business after WrestleMania for the whole spring and the summer. Owen and I right up to the cage match at SummerSlam. We sold out everywhere we went. And Owen, we got better and better and better. The match that we ended up doing was the right match. But I think the match that we didn't do, if you could see it today, you'd go, that was a better match. It was way more fun, but it was not the right story.
You were talking a lot about, the move away from like cartoon to realistic things, but Cat's been out of the bag for almost 30 years now about kayfabe and wrestling being, scripted anyway. So what do you feel about kind of the focus on story that you see a lot today? Like not just in WWE, but like in the indies, all of this. There's a focus on telling like narrative as opposed to just the match. The match is the factor, but it's also the story.
You mean like the writers? Like I go on back from a different time. When I was wrestling, nobody came in and told me what to do. No one told me what to say. It's not like that anymore. They come in, they tell you what to say, they tell you what to do. I don't know. I think there could be a lot to be said for the storyline of a match. I find the storylines are the same. A lot of the matches are the same today. I mean, not I want to rag on Triple H again, but let's take Triple H for an example. It's the same match every night. He doesn't do anything different. There's never been anything original. Like, he never comes up with any new idea, like he's got an idea that no one ever thought of. And there's a lot of guys like that. They don't go the extra, they don't think of anything. They don't innovate. They don't, all they do is go out there, and I think Triple H is sort of he's a good wrestler. I mean, he's a better wrestler than maybe people think I think he is. You know, I think he's always been a really good, solid wrestler. But he has the same story every match, and the same kind of type of match. If someone told me that he's like, heard Jericho talking about me, because I had said something about his matches at WrestleMania with Undertaker was a 4 out of 10, which it was. And you know, like Jericho criticized me in a fun way or a fair way, saying that he's had all kinds of classic matches with Triple H himself, and that he's had lots of great matches. I don't know of any match I don't know of one match that Chris Jericho ever had, or Triple H, that stood out to me as a classic, like the best. You have to see this match, and when you see it, you're not going to be disappointed. You can find one for me if they exist, but there's no match that I've ever seen Triple H in that was ever struck me as original or unique or special, or that they really tore the house down. I mean, they always had good matches. I'm sure Jericho's had lots of great matches, but a classic, I don't know. I don't think classic is thrown around too freely these days. To me, the classic matches are, there's the Iron Man match, I think is a classic. When my brother Owen, he WrestleMania 10 is a classic. Mr. Perfect, SummerSlam would be a classic. Hogan and Andre would be a classic. Steamboat, Macho Man would be a classic. And I'm sure there's lots more, but I mean, a lot of these wrestlers that have been wrestling since I left, I don't know what classic matches they're talking about. There's very few that stand out. I think Punk and Daniel Bryan are two guys in particular that have had numerous classic matches. The match that Punk had with Undertaker was a classic match. That's a match that's going to live forever because it was that good. And it was that good because they worked that hard. But Jericho and Triple H, if you can find a match and show it to me, but I don't care to remember anything.
I've got a quick question. I had Chris Random here earlier. He was talking about working with Andre the Giant during the Princess project, and talking about what kind of presence he commanded. Just when you walked in the room, Andre the Giant was there, and he was a phenomenal person. Who were some of the other people that you worked with that were just incredibly charismatic? Like not on screen or not in the ring, but just working with them in general.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, every wrestler's got a certain kind of charisma. Most of them, those that would have got there. But Andre, I don't know if he would have been the most charismatic guy. The way I look at things is, there's generally 3 categories to being a great wrestler, in my opinion. Maybe 4 categories. But I would say the 3 things that are critical to being a great wrestler is how you look, how you talk, and how you really wrestle. And if you give points like on a scale 1 to 10 for each category, as an example, Hulk Hogan was a 10 out of 10 look. He walked in the room and you just saw him, and he was all oiled up and his tank top or his shirt cut and all that, and he had a bandana on. When he walked in the room, you'd just be so blown away at how big and how impressive it looked. He was a 10 out of 10 look. And then his promos for his time period anyway, and for most of his career, Hogan was a 10 out of 10 promo guy. He could cut a promo about the pythons and the stars and stripes and stuff. And I remember lots of times being in the room when he would do his interviews, I'd get goosebumps up my arm and go, wow, that was intense. He was really special as far as his look and his promos. But then it comes to the wrestling category. What kind of wrestler was Hogan? Well, you might give him 2 out of 10. Being honest, that's what you would give Hulk, is a 2 out of 10. And then you take someone like Steve Austin. walks in the room. He's only about 6'1". He had a good look. He looked like a badass. And he was an athlete and he looked like a tough guy. And I gave him a real high mark on his look. He had a 9 out of 10 look. And then his promos, 10 out of 10 promos. Steve Austin was one of the best promo guys. And his wrestling, he was about a 7 or 8 out of 10. He was a good wrestler. I think a very good, capable wrestler. I enjoyed working with him. He was safe and reliable and hardworking. And then you take those numbers and you add them all up, and that's how you get how good a wrestler someone might be. The other sort of thread that goes through all that is charisma. You know, everybody, I know I guys talked about me for a long time, said I had no personality and I had no charisma and no one would ever want to watch me. But the truth is that, I was probably on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as my look went. I was probably about a 7. I had a decent athletic look. I looked like an athlete, but I didn't look like Hulk Hogan. My promos were probably about a 6 or 7 out of 10 too. They were nothing special. They were later on in my career when I got better. But my strongest suit was my wrestling. I think I was like a 9 or 10 on my wrestling scale. And you mix all that together and you get close to 30, and that's what you need. If you got a high number, getting close to 30 off that scale I just talked about, then there's a good chance you can be a great wrestler, or you can be. And that's just some food for thought on that.
Toxic Pop has a new Facebook page. Like it to see pictures and keep informed about our upcoming events and videos. A link is in the description. Go to www.facebook.com/toxicpop1.